was a prisoner, and he's sitting there in prison all by himself, and he says, well, friend, you know, I want so much to give that money, but there's nobody here.
Thank you.
So he says, the only one who's here is God. So you're the only one who's here. So I'll give you Shlachmon. Then he says, what can you give you? I have nothing to give you. And he says, no. He says, I'm giving you the tears of all of Israel. Well, goodbye, Shlachmon. That's all right. But I want you to give me Shlachmon's back. Because then Shlachmon's back. I want you to send me back Simcha. Equivalent to the tears of Israel. This is mind blowing. The best from the south. And he was in prison, but this guard was wise, and he wouldn't give him certain freedom. So it's 10 minutes to 12. The reason was 3 weeks to the one. For example, I can give you exactly 5 minutes because I don't know if you know this. First division was alone, because they must live for a year and a half. And then it got a little bit better. They permitted the Gabba to come and bring things to take care of him. So the Gabba goes out and says to the guard, the Rebbe has to catch the one, has to go to the garden. Okay, but he has to be back in 5 minutes because there's an exchange of cards at 12 o'clock. So the Rishon says, good, I'll make it fast. The Rishon comes out, you give him the Rishon down, he needs to. So the Rishon comes out and he davens from 12 to the 1:45. And the whole time this guard is getting crazy. You know, when the other guard comes and this prisoner tells him that that was the end of me. Okay, 1:45, the Rishon finishes and they let him in. So he says an Amram story. He says, can't understand it. I'm going here to prison every night from 12 to 4 I'm here, and he does, I lost the way. No, wait, I'm going to finish the story, right?
Lost the way.
So you see what happened. He only arrived 4, so the reason had to make a long Kiddush Levana. So from heaven, they didn't let the guard find the way to it. You know what poor is? The Rabbi was taking care of us in such an unbelievable way, Not to be believed. Things we don't know. You know why Purim is God's name is not mentioned? Because the real miracle you'll never know, right? The ice in the floor is Kedalah. So the book says that there's a few miracles. You know? Imagine if Einstein would tell us, I'm basically teaching mathematics in the kindergarten. That means he's holding back. He's hiding his real thing, right? Anyway, thank you so much.
But I also love what you said last night about Purim also being, what you said last night about Purim being a really, one of the ways of really serving Hashem is by serving people. You know, by being close to people, you're close to Hashem.
Yeah.
And we said that's really also
That's so
beautiful. It's so beautiful.
You see what it is? On Pesach, going out of Egypt is talking about God.
Exactly, right.
But
right.
for Mashiach, has to be people.
People, right. It's really beautiful.
Shabbos, Good Yom Tov.
Shabbos, Good Yom Tov.
There's two kinds of kvitzas there. I mean, of kvitzas there. Or let's say I have to be in Berlin, and have to be there in 5 minutes. There's two ways. Or I bring myself to Berlin, or I bring Berlin here. So there's a shul from the Ben Ish Chai. On Shabbos, you're not permitted to travel, right? So the question is, are you permitted to do kvitzas there on Shabbos? So he said, if it's to bring yourself over there, you're not permitted. But if it's there, bringing the whole city here. You know what the Pshischa says? I can take Berlin, with all the trees, all the buildings, bring it here to Pshischa, and then bring it back. This was not even for a short story, the masters of heaven and earth. You know, in Biyam, one time there was no movement. The whole month there was no movement. So they came to Rabbi Yitzchak Biyam and said, Rabbi, please get us the moon. He says, the moon, he says, you know the way they talk in the region of Yiddish, Nochem you. So later on was Chernovitz, the Yana Rabbi said, he's the master of the moon. He's 14 years old. He was always fly. He was walks in his room up and down. So he would say, Rabbi, can you give us the moon? He says, give me a towel. In his room, not even outside. We go outside, bless the moon. It's too loud. What can you do? Peace. Peace. For Pesach begins on 4, so exactly 30 days. So 4. Okay. So it says, and the Hebrew word shoreling means to ask or to question, but also means to beg. That means the Mamash have to beg God, let my Pesach be a gewalt. But nothing happens without being asked. And as much as God wants to give us, but if we don't ask, we don't get it. Okay, so what's the best way to be answered by God? If I also am sensitive that never so many people are begging me without telling me they need money for Pesach. So from 30 days before Pesach, I have to learn the laws of Pesach. And also, Ramos says, you have to start giving out money for the poor, which to have a good Pesach. Anybody in America, it's not so strong because we are so dispersed a little bit. In Europe, Mamish, right, one day after Purim, or sometimes on Purim, they would collect more schitim. They wouldn't call it money for the poor, but they call it more schitim, money to buy flour for the matzah. Okay, there's a whole controversy again. So God is called the Great Chametz. Everybody learns the laws of Pesach. But regardless, it's mamish good for everyone to learn the laws of Pesach from Purim on. Okay, you have to start collecting money for Pesach 30 days before, or maybe a week before. But whom do you have to give first? Because everybody knows the law is that a niye ir koidmin. You know, imagine a Yid that comes to me from Alaska. He says, I need money for Pesach, right? And yet, next door for me lives a poor man here all year long. So the one who lives here is first. So what is called living here? So the Ramos says living here means he's here for 1 year. A Jew who is here a year is called, he lives in this city. So he is first. But if someone comes for a weekend, then, yeah, what do you want to say?
If when you say first, if they come together, then you know which one is first. If the one from Alaska comes to you,
Yeah.
and the other one hasn't come until, the one from Alaska comes a month before, and the other one comes 2 weeks before, how do you know?
Well, you see, if you know that there's a Italy here next door who needs it,
Right, you have to hold off.
yeah, sure, you're collecting, you see, basically your collection is for the people
Around you.
around you. Okay, Moshe, you're touching on something very important. Because by Pesach it says, V'loka hu shchenai. You know, by the Paschal Lamb, it says, the only time the Torah says, you and your neighbor. You see what it is, like, this is mamash so deep, on Seder night not only became free, you also became a nation. Because before we were just, hanging around slaves. Enik lechal Avrom. But mamash, Klal Yisrael, mamash, a nation, we became that night. And this is very important. By the world, I love the nation, but I can't stand my neighbor. Some people take care of all the children of the world and they hit their own, right? So the first thing by us Yidden is, are you taking care of your own family? Say the night, I'm sitting with my family, right? And I'm taking care of my neighbor. There's certain channels. Take all those universal Yidden, right? What's their problem? They can't stand Yidden, but they love the world. There has to be some foundation. First, you love your wife, your children. You love your neighbor, you love your cousin, and then you love the world.
A long-distance company exit.
Hanan is on?
No, I can't get, it says long distance, I can call on this long distance.
Crazy.
Don't
Now
want
you have to,
OATT. Don't
you have to
want
put it to the
OATT.
other one.
That other one, yeah.
Yeah. The one more left.
Yes.
I have to fix it, I have to tell Jasmine. Okay, here friends, Pesach is very, very much family-oriented and very much neighbor-oriented. And it's supposed to be forever, but this is basic training.
Excuse me, Shlomo.
Yeah?
Then is Pesach one of the times when you should be with your family rather than where, let's say, your neshama is going to get more nourished?
Listen to me. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you a good Torah. It says in the Shon Och, a chazan for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur has to be a God-fearing person, and he has to have a good voice, and basically it also says he should have children, because if he is single, he only prays for himself, then he should already pray for his children. And about seven attributes a chazan needs. So a chazan comes to shul, he says, I go out chazan, and they tell him to sing. He has no voice. So they ask him, well, what a chutzpah is? What do you mean you have no voice? He says, yeah, but I have the rest, right? I'm married. I say, yes, this is just cute if you have it, but the first thing is you must have a voice, right? And the first thing you must have a seder, right? And if you have a seder, the question is, should you spend it with your family or not? But if your family doesn't have a seder, the real seder, then what do you say? I have to be with my family. You can play cards with them another night. Like, I tell you this, remember, Holy Hippol in India, you always think that in India they wear white turbans. Only the Yidden there wear white turbans. Anyway, okay, I don't know his name now, but ask him, what was your name before? Moshe, Yanka, anyway. So I asked him, why didn't you go to Yerushalayim? What are you doing in India? He says to me that, talking about Pesach, He says his seder was that his uncle would mamish weeks before Pesach, mamish read all the dirty jokes he could possibly remember, and then Baruch Hashem, by the seder he packed out all the dirty jokes, and then they ate the soup. So he didn't like it, right? You know, seder's heartbreaking, you know. Maybe in heaven, maybe Rabbi Yitzchak Bedikat will say, Gewalt, that his dirty jokes are turning over heaven. I don't know, you know, but this is maybe up there, but down here. But you see what else is very important. See, here in Chutzlar, God gives us 2 seders. So in emergency, you can spend 1 seder with your family if you have to, and 1 seder happens inside. Okay, now this is very important about the 12 months. And poor man who lives here for 12 months is part of the collection, because we're collecting basically for the people of my neighborhood. But also, imagine there's a rich Yiddish, he comes here just for 1 weekend. I cannot say you have to give me money for the poor, because I don't live here. But when he lives here 1 year, and he is mechuyev to give. Yeah. But yet, okay, this is Shonor. And, okay, then after that, today, because people are moving so much, so the Heilige Bach says that today, it's enough 30 days. Means if you live in the neighborhood 30 days, they can mamish tell you have to give us money for the poor of the neighborhood. And also, if you live there for 30 days, you have the right to say, I want to be included. People should give me money. But yet, then the Mogen Avraham says, okay, if someone doesn't live, good morning, Brother Baruch. If someone doesn't live for 30 days, doesn't mean that you don't have to give him anything. Yiddish comes never, Yiddish lives here, and you don't live for 30 days, so go to hell. That's not the point. You have to give him enough money for matzah and for wine. That's a must. But, you know, most chitim means mamish to give him money. We should have money for the Pesach, we should have yontif. This is a Gewalt Torah, you know, like, there's a chassid, what's a big lamb, came to the Rebbe. He asked him, what are you doing before Pesach? He says, I don't have time even to learn the laws of Pesach, because he says, so many people come and ask me questions all the time, shilas. So the Rebbe says, you know what people ask you so many shilas? Because since you don't learn Hilchos Pesach, so God is forcing you that people ask you shilas, so you have to look it up. But it says, if you would mamish learn, and would mamish shine into the city, then they wouldn't have to ask. Yeah. It's a good Torah. Also something very, very, very important. This is one of the Torahs which I heard from my father every Seder night, really got into my bones. You know, the first thing, or the second, or third, on the Pesach night, the Seder night, we divide the matzah. And a little part stays on the Seder, the bigger part, although it has wings and meaning. The deepest meaning of it is Shabbos K'yont. The deepest meaning is, you know, like in Egypt, they gave us so little to eat, right? What did we do? We never ate the whole thing. We kept a little bit for ourselves, and the bigger part we gave somebody else who was more hungry. Unbelievable. I want you to know, when we say that God took us out of Egypt because of our father Abraham, doesn't just mean because my grandfather was Abraham, so I registered in God's, and when it came to census, I said, I'm a grandson of Abraham, you better get me out of Egypt. It is because we were mamish, the children of Abraham. Mamish, we gave away so much. So every Pesach, when I want to get out of slavery again, it's mamish very, very important, more important than any other time. You know, Shavuos is also a big holiday. But Shavuos, there is no law. You have to make sure that your neighbor has also Yom Tov, because on Shavuos is Yitzchak. I'm sure Yitzchak gave away also, but not like Avraham, right? Avraham's specialty is giving away. So Pesach, the specialty of Hasidim is that you mamish give away the greater part. And also, I mean, I'm sure you know that Seder begins, I say, Kol dich v'yetze v'yechel, mamish akolat, anybody who's hungry, come here and eat. We don't do it on Shavuos, we do it on Sukkot.
Shavuos is the holiday of Yitzhak?
Yeah.
And what about Yaakov, which is?
Sukkot.
Sukkot.
Yeah. Because when Yaakov moved away from Esav, it says, Yaakov nosa sukhaisa. He built a sukkah. You see, it has millions of meanings, but in a nutshell, you know, when Yaakov moved away from Esav, he foresaw what will happen to the Yidden till Mashiach's coming, right? And he saw that Esav will destroy the Holy Temple, he'll be in exile. So Yaakov Avinu brought down the sukkah that we should always have somewhere, even on the street, we should have a little sukkah. We should be surrounded by God's light wherever we are. Yeah, what do you want to say, Marie?
If Pesach is a holiday of Avraham, then is it related to Lech Lecha? Because in Lech Lecha we were leaving.
100%. Maureen, your mamish in good shape today. Because Pesach we're leaving Egypt. Get out of here, right? Maureen, your mamish good, you know? You're the best.
So, no, but is that related?
100%. Not only maybe, it's it, you know? And you see what it is? I have to tell you, a Hebrew teacher told me, you know, how American kids are job-oriented, right? So he tells the kids in first grade that we're leaving Egypt. So one boy says, how could they? They had a job, you know? But you know what it is? I mean, it's not to be believed. 3 million are leaving and going to the desert without having food. Just mamish, absolutely trusting God. Like Avraham Avinu. I just want to tell you again, I'm sure some of you remember it. When did God speak to Avraham Avinu the first time? I think it was Thursday or Wednesday. What does your heart tell you? Shabbos, right? Okay, Avraham Avinu was at that time the richest man in his time. What was his riches? At that time his riches was cattle. And I'm sure other people. Okay, God spoke to him Shabbos morning, right? Avraham Avinu kept Shabbos, so on Shabbos he can't sell anything. Then the Heilige Zed Avram made Havdalah, right? And when did Avraham Avinu leave? What does your heart tell you? What? No, he left in the morning. Avraham Avinu is Shachas, right?
You have to leave in the morning, right?
So Avraham Avinu left the next morning. How much could he take with him?
Cattle.
What?
His cattle.
How much can he take? And prepare for Havdalah the next morning? He left everything behind. Maybe I'm sure he took a few oxes and a few horses with him. But he left the 85% of his everything he left. And yet, you know, miraculously, after traveling for a few weeks, Mamash God gave it back 10,000 times, right? Since Avram covered my he was like Mamash Gewalt, right? So, but it was like the same thing, you know, we left Egypt, we had nothing to take with us. Okay. Then it says that on Chodesh Nisan, from Rosh Chodesh on, till Pesach, you don't say Tachlon. And this is very heavy without getting about, you know, Tachlon after Shachas After Shachas, you know what I need? Someone can give me some Kleenex from last week, maybe new ones.
Pesach on, we don't say Tachlis.
From Rosh Chodesh on.
Rosh Chodesh.
Actually, the whole month of Nisan we don't say Tachlis.
Get some more paper there.
Starting with Rosh Chodesh.
Chodesh Nisan. From next Sunday on, we don't say. Actually, we don't say the whole month because it's the whole month. You see, in the Torah it says HaChodesh Hazeh this month. It doesn't say this day Rosh Chodesh, but the whole month. Chodesh Hazeh Rosh Chodesh. So on Chodesh Nisan, the whole month is a Yom. And you know, in sons, the Holy Sons would wear a shtraima the whole month, big the Shabbos. Okay, I don't know if you remember this, what besides getting out of Egypt? Everybody knows that the initiation of the Mishkan was on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Unbelievable. And the first 12 days, every day another prince of the tribe brought a sacrifice. So whenever a prince of this tribe brought a sacrifice, there was a special sacrifice, the whole tribe was besimcha, it was their Yom Tov, right? So then let's say the first day was Yehuda. So what's going on with Shimon and Reuben? They say, listen, it's not my holiday because it's only your tribe. Then all the tribes are also joining them, you know? Because Pesach, the whole thing is mamish, all the Eden together. So, although every day, and I want you to know something, if you can put your heart into it, but the end, middle of the Siddur, you're supposed to say the day, I have to show you later on in the Siddur. It says, you know, on the first day, Yehuda brought a sacrifice. On the second day, Shimon. And at the end is a very, very beautiful prayer. And say, Rabbi Shlomo of the world, I don't know which tribe I'm from. But if I'm from that tribe, then let the light of this tribe shine into me. Because every tribe had a different mission in life. So it's good to say it. Because we really don't know what we're here for. I'm sorry, man? Oh, both, we call it, yeah. Heilige Moshe, yeah. Okay, also, from Rosh Chodesh Nisan on, we should all live forever, but it cut a bit. I'm sure this year nobody's going to die, but maybe last year, you're not permitted to make a long eulogy. Because you must have to be besimcha the whole time.
I think you're not supposed to commit any eulogy.
When? Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to say one word, you know.
What, during Hadar?
Listen.
Oh, listen.
Yeah. I have to tell you something awesome. You know that the days when they initiated the Mishkan, nobody died. How much for real? Nobody died. And when Shlomo Melech initiated the Holy Temple, I don't know for how many days, for how many weeks, nobody died. And here's the most unbelievable story. You know, when Rabbi Shapiro, when he opened his yeshiva in Lublin, was approximately, I think it was maybe 28 or 29, opened the yeshiva, the first time in the history that the yeshiva mamash had a beautiful building. You know, in those days, Nebuch Yeshiva would sit in a little bit smellish, and they had one piece of bread and would eat take. It was mamash broken. Then he says, why should university students live in decent house? Why shouldn't Chavra learn Gemara? Anyway, it's a long, long story. He opened the yeshiva, and all the rabbis came to the opening. And the craziest thing is And the Chotkeva was in Lublin for 2 weeks. And because he was his rabbi, the Heilige Chotkeva. And those 2 weeks, nobody died in all of Lublin. Not even going. Nobody died. It was almost like the opening of the Holy Tablets. Unbelievable. Yeah. Because it's a whole long story. Rabbi Shapiro was begging the Chotkeva it has stayed a little bit longer, you know? Because Mamish in Yuschus, nobody. Unbelievable.
Shlomo, do you mean like when the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash were initiated, nobody died? I mean when it was being built or when it was ready to be dedicated?
No, when it was initiated. So Shlomo Melech was, right now I remember it was 2 weeks or 7 days.
2 weeks and 7 days?
No, or 7 days and 2 weeks, I don't remember. Okay, here comes one more thing, and you're not permitted to fast either. From Chodesh Nisan on. And this is the whole big thing about the Kosev. But then there's a big shayla. God forbid, someone, God forbid, has a bad dream. If someone has a bad dream, then you fast. The shayla is, are you permitted to fast because of the dream in Chodesh Nisan? Does anybody here know what you do, God forbid, when you have not such a good dream? You have to call up your best friend, and they have to tell you, Mamish, don't tell them the dream, just tell them I had a bad dream, and then they tell you, you saw a good dream, you saw a good dream, you saw a good dream. Come out. Yeah. But you have, it has to be a good friend.
So they have to say it at least 3 times.
Yeah. Or 9 times, whatever is best to you. And it's a big shayla that some people are fasting when they have yortzeit. When the day someone died, father and mother. So it's a whole.
Rabbi Shlomo, that's a half-day fast, right? Just till sunset?
No, yeah.
Just till sunset. It's not at night.
During the day. Do you know that David HaMelech, not to be believed, David HaMelech had terrible dreams every night. And David HaMelech spent his whole life fasting because of dreams. Yeah. I'm sure it has deeper meaning than I know at this moment, but it's awesome. Because you see, David HaMelech had the neshama of Mashiach. Who knows what he dreamt, what he saw every night, his dreams throughout.
How long should you fast? If you have a bad dream, besides saying that you just fast for 1 day?
No. After someone says it to you, that you have to believe that you don't have to fast. But if you still can't get it out of your system, then fast.
For 1 day?
1 day, that's it. Okay, this is very important. The only day you can fast, if you want to, is an Erev Pesach if you are firstborn. But hopefully, you come here, you go to a shul, and you know what it is? Some people come, the siyum is long over, and everybody's walking out, they say, I was there, so I can eat. You don't have to be by the davening, but you have to be by the siyum. Because when you make a siyum, it's so much simcha that you have to eat. But if you're not there when it makes a siyum, then it doesn't count. Okay. Oh, you see, the problem with this phone is it's turned on to my machine. So I was being so that just ignore it. Okay, then it says the Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos HaGodol. I'm sure everybody knows that. Why is it called Shabbos HaGodol? For 2 billion reasons. Basically, it's because the Nes, if you remember the Yidden at that time, Shabbos HaGodol was the 10th of Nisan, because the Yidden, well, let's say, when did the Yidden leave Egypt? Wednesday night. Wednesday night was the Seder. So the Shabbos HaGodol was the 10th, and on the 10th God told them to take a sheep for the Paschal lamb. And basically the Egyptians should have been falling upon them, and killed them because they took their God. And the greatest miracle happened that nothing happened. And in a nutshell, what is a great person and what's a small person? A small person is someone who's afraid of the whole world, afraid of everybody else. The greater you are, the less you're afraid. Never a slave who was what's a slave? Is afraid of his master, right? So when did they grow up? Shabbos HaGodol, right? Suddenly they became great. They grew up on one Shabbos, not afraid. You cannot be, it's an assimilated Jew. An assimilated Jew is afraid of the world. And a real Jew is not afraid. Okay, then one more thing, that you have to say the Haggadah on Shabbos HaGodol, Bez Hashem, you should live to see it. On Shabbos HaGodol, you say by Mincha, you say the Haggadah from Avodah Medino till Chabal Havasenu. But let's leave this for Shabbos HaGodol. No. Right now, I will not miss you the loss of Bedikat Chametz. This is very, very important, friends. It's not only that we shouldn't have Chametz in our house. I got this cleaning woman, and she cleans very thoroughly, and I trust her. She is my maid for 10 years. All this doesn't count. It doesn't count. Mamish, you have to search for it. And the deepest depth is not only you have to search for it, you have to find it also. If you remember, you have to put somewhere 10 little pieces of chametz, but best at the window, and you have to burn the next day those 10 pieces of chametz. Because the searching of the chametz is not only the outside chametz, we're not only talking about physical chametz, always the inside chametz. You know what chametz is? This is very deep. Basically, it's good stuff. I can eat it all year. But then there comes a certain time when it doesn't fit. You know what our problem is? We are not really connected to the time. You know exactly. Yeah, it's good, but not right now. Right? A slave always judges by yesterday, right? And a free person is, yeah, maybe yesterday it was good, but not right this minute. So, and also chametz, remember chametz is a little bit pride. It's a little bit of water and flour and it blows up like it's I don't know what, right? And matzah is for real. It's water and flour and stays down. And I'm sure you remember that on Pesach, did we do anything in order to get out of Egypt? We didn't do anything. God did everything, right? When it came to Kriyas Yamsuf, we did it already. We walked into the sea. When we came out of Egypt, we were completely passive. Mamish God took us out. And the Chametz is a little bit what I'm doing. You know, there's water and flour. Then the bread on its own is rising. But on Pesach, the beginning of it is, first thing it has to be clear to me, Mamish God is doing everything. After this is clear to me, then it's also clear to me, you see, on Shavuos, we are bringing bread. Pesach matzah, and on Shavuos we're bringing bread. Because the Torah is like a little partnership. God gives me the Torah, but then I'll have all the books here, and I'll say, don't have to do anything, you have the books. Now, you better learn, right? So it's a little bit my doing. God gives me this. God gives me the Torah, but then I have to learn it. So it's already Chametz, right? God gives me the water and the flour, and I have to do a little bit rising. But on Pesach, it's just God doing. So I have to mamish search all over the place if there's still 1 billionth ounce in me left that I'm thinking I'm doing it. You know that the Heilige Kusumer was mamish up all night mamish looking for Chametz. And obviously his house was cleaned before, and mamish heard in Mojas he was mamish lying mamish on the floor like 10,000 Yom Kippurs and crying his eyes out. Okay, so here it begins. The night of the 14th, and also you don't come a psychedelic light and you look for the Chametz. It has to be a candle. It has to be a candle. Because there's a posting it says, Ner Hashem Nishmas Odom. God's candle, our soul is God's candle. That means you're not looking for the Chametz like a scientist with, I don't know what, with your neshama. Because there are certain things which are so deep, unless you put your neshama into it, you don't find it. You have come in. Again, you know, imagine I have a room in my house which is not used at all. So I don't have to look for Chametz there. I only have to look for Chametz in a place where maybe during the year I put in some bread. And also it means also spiritually. There are certain areas, hopefully in me, which I'm not blowing up all the time. Hopefully. Let's say, imagine someone is traveling. We'll come to it in a second, but more just imagine I'm on a trip. I'm coming back from Pesach, and the night before the Seder, I know I won't be in my house. So then I have to appoint somebody else, mamish, to look for it. But it has to be. We'll come to this in a second. Let me ask you, let's say Lichtmenschen is 5:45, right? Can I begin searching for the Chametz at the same time like Lichtmenschen? No, it has to be mamish dark. It's not Ben Hashmosh, it's the in-between time. It has to be mamish dark. You know why? Because if there's a little bit light yet left, then the candle doesn't shine so much. The candle is only when it's absolutely dark. Yeah.
Just a question. But if you have someone else, you hire someone else to do it, right?
Yeah.
Then how does that coincide with your internal process?
I know, that's really not so good, right?
Right.
Not only an emergency, because it's still, you're not permitted to be in a house on Pesach,
Right.
in which the house didn't have the tickets Chametz.
Does that include a hotel?
Yeah, mamish.
So when you get to a hotel, Erev Pesach, you have to do a little Bedikat.
Yeah, 100%.
How can you destroy it? It's past Bedikat, the time.
Oh, so you see what it is.
You can put a
So, your mom is asking the deepest question.
Well, it's going to affect me
Yeah,
directly,
but
actually.
A lot of families, the whole 5 towns empties out. They all go to hotels.
see what it is. We'll come to it in 1 second. Can you hold off? But basically, now the Gemara says it's a big shot in the Gemara, assuming that the hotel belongs to a Jew, right? Let's say you go to the Esplanade, right? It belongs to a Jew, right? So Brother Shav, he is supposed to make Bedikas Chametz in the whole hotel, right? So when you move in Erev Pesach, you assume that he already made Bedikas Chametz the night before. But then you ask him, if he says I didn't, then you have to do it. What can you do, right? But there's a whole machlokes in the Gemara. If I rent a room on Erev Pesach in the morning, if I can assume that the Yid was already by the Chametz or not. It's a whole big shana. We'll come to it in a second.
Are you also going to come to what happens if you're not in your own house for Pesach? What do you have to do?
So you have to be Bedikat also. Basically, from 30 days on before Pesach, imagine you go on a trip to South Africa.
I'm going to Erev Yisrael.
Oh, good. So you have to be Bedikat before.
But how do I do it? I mean, the same way, or?
So in May, you take a candle. We'll go on, but okay, we'll come to it in a second. Okay, when it comes the 14th at night, and it's time to Bedikas Chametz, you're not permitted to do anything, not to work. When someone says, listen, I want to learn first, and then, no. You have to manage to be Bedikas Chametz first. But there's a controversy. If I begin learning while it's still day, and then the sun goes under, am I supposed to stop learning and be by the Chametz or not? It's a machlokes between the Beis Yosef and the Ramah. The Ramah says you have to stop, and Beis Yosef says you don't have to. 1 second. Is about Bedikas Chametz, that if you were not by the Chametz before Pesach, you come back to your house, you have to be by the Chametz now. Unbelievable. Awesome. But then it says here, like you go to Israel, you go to South Africa, when there's nobody in the house, then you should be just Bedikat any time. You're leaving in January, and you're leaving your house, but you don't make a bracha.
Without the bracha?
Without the bracha.
Uh-huh. What about Kabbalah's Kinyan? I thought that was part of what had to be done also.
No, Kabbalah's Kinyan is something else. This is Chametz, whatever you have, you should sell it. But it's nothing to do with the house.
Uh-huh.
Cleaning the house.
If you sell your, can you sell your apartment and then instead of convert it?
If you rent out your apartment to a guy, right, then it's not your apartment. Something else, right? I hate to say bad things, you know, I have a house on the Moshav. What do? I rent it out. I rent it out to Charlie. So it's not a Jewish house. Yeah, it's a good idea. So if you go to Israel, you should rent it out, you know, for all cases. Or maybe you should really clean it.
Or maybe I should really clean it.
I've got a good sleep.
Yeah.
What?
What?
Responsible for the fun day.
What? What do you say, Nomi?
No, I said I had a good idea. Have Laura stay at Charlotte's apartment.
Yeah.
And she'll clean it. She'll let me just low take it.
That sounds fine to me. Really interesting.
Okay, then there's another shitta, which is really what you asked. If I leave my apartment 30 days before Pesach, then I just, you know, there's also, if you remember learning a little bit later, when after I burn the chametz, I say I'm a vatul the chametz. I declare the chametz non-existent. And you know, the chametz is so strong. You know, like obviously it is so important, mamish, to get rid of it that I have to be baidik, and I have to sell it, and also I'm a vatul it. Vatul is I declare it non-existent. It doesn't exist in my house, in my heart.
There's a special bracha for that, isn't it?
No, you say.
Isn't there a special bracha that says that?
You see, basically, the bracha you make over Bedikat is also including.
Yeah, but just say I don't make a bracha in Bedikat if I'm doing it.
When you're not Bedikat, when you're just mevatel, I don't know if you make a bracha.
Say kol chamira.
You say kol chamira, it's not the bracha. You just say it. So that's a declaration. Declaration that every chametz which I have is non-existent.
Why you leave it? I have to close it.
Okay, sure. Thank you for coming in.
So Shlomo, could I just clarify this because I really have to.
Yeah.
I buy the chametz before I leave, but I don't make a bracha with it.
No, you are leaving before Pesach, right? It's within 30 days.
Do within the time.
So it's 100% you make a bracha.
So I do make a bracha. So when don't you make a bracha?
If it's before
No,
30
let's say you left
Before
in
the 30
January.
day? Okay.
Let's say if you left in January and you're sitting in Africa and suddenly you realize, Gewalt, you know, I wasn't buying my chametz and everything, and you have no way of renting it out to a non-Jew, then you just amavatel it. You say kol chamir. Thank you. Oh, he says. You know, I'm wrong. It's not so simple. There's a possibility that you have to make a bracha even over just to annihilate the chametz.
At what time?
Kol chamir, you have to say Erev Pesach in the morning. Wherever you are, you say Kol chamir.
So not at the time I do the body, but.
No, that you make a bracha on beer chametz.
Yeah. Okay.
You make a bracha twice. When you walk around, and the next morning when you burn it. You see, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, I would say that your son should make your partner with him, right? Then you make a bracha anyway.
Yeah.
And then you say already Kol Chamira also.
Okay.
Listen to me. There's a big shayla. If I live in my house, right? You're in Eretz Yisrael, right? And then you imagine, you tell me, can you rent to Charlie my house from Erev Pesach on? But Charlie only officially moves in on Erev Pesach morning, right? So are you still have to be Bedikat because until Erev Pesach morning it's your house and you're supposed to be Bedikat the night before? It's again a big shayla. It can be because you only have to be Bedikat because on Pesach it belongs to you. But if on Pesach it doesn't belong to you, you don't have to be Bedikat. And others say no, you still have to be Bedikat. You see, basically, this is all so deep because the deepest question in the world is, I have to annihilate the chametz anyway, so I don't have to be Bedikat. I should just say, you know, for me the chametz doesn't exist. There's a whole machlokes, but basically, according to Taisvis, I have to be by the chametz because I'm so accustomed to see chametz in my house, you know? Imagine, Shlachmon is lying around, and on Pesach, if I don't put it away, right? Suddenly I see a good piece of cake, I'll eat it. Forgetting it's Pesach, right? So that means I have to be by the chametz because maybe I'll tiny piece of chametz, and I'll eat it, right? So if this is the reason, then you don't have anybody because you won't be there, right? But if it's just the mitzvah be'er chametz, it's part of the mitzvah, you have to be by the chametz, then who cares will be there Pesach? Right now it's my house, and I have a mitzvah of getting out the chametz from my house. Before I forget, I have to tell you, I'm sure I told you this a lot of times. One day on Erev Pesach was a big demonstration from the English in Eretz Yisrael, and they invited Rav Kook to speak, and they asked him what is Pesach all about. So he gave us a bit of a political speech, and he said like this: that for us Jews, you only have to look for the chametz in your own house. I don't have to go to somebody else's house to look for chametz. He says the world is just the opposite. America wants to be by the chametz in Russia. Russia wants to be by the chametz in England. England wants to be by the chametz in Africa. Everybody is by the chametz in somebody else's house. He says, but you're still a slave. A free person is somebody who's by the chametz in his own house. Think about it. Okay, there's something very beautiful. Okay, here I am, let's say Sister Charlotte.
Yeah.
You're renting out your apartment from Erev Pesach from 10 o'clock on, right? So the question is, do you have to be by the chametz the night before? Well, forgetting, maybe I'm here in America, right? I move out from my apartment, I'm going to a hotel, and I'm renting out my apartment. So basically, most of them say, I have to be by the chametz, because the night of the 14th, I have to be by the chametz, I have to look for chametz, and it's still my house at this point. And then the others say no. Because why do you have to be by the chametz? Because you'll live here on Pesach. But if you won't live here on Pesach, you don't have to. But then there's a third shitta, which is even more beautiful. They say that renting it to Goy is also be'er chametz. Because what is called to wipe out the chametz doesn't mean I have to wipe out the chametz, I have to wipe it out from my possession. And if I'm renting it out to the Goy, that's called I'm wiping it out. That's pretty good, right? Yeah. You see, the shana is if it's boiling down chametz or the ikar mitzvah is get it out of your possession. If I'm renting it out to somebody else,
What's the question, whether it's getting it out of your possession or?
You see, I'm only, it says I'm not permitted to have chametz in my possession, right? On the night of the 14th, it's still my possession, because I'm only renting it out tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So the question is, do I have to look for the chametz the night of the 14th, because it's still my house? Or I don't have to, because I know now that from tomorrow on, when Pesach begins, it won't be my house. So some say you have to be the chametz, because right now it's your house. And according to the Chachamim, to the Torah, you have to be by the chametz the night of the 14th, then you have to be by the chametz. But the others say no, that the very fact that I'm renting it out, this is a deepest be'er chametz, because I'm wiping out the chametz from my possession tomorrow. Okay, then it's a very big shayla also. If I was by the chametz, I put in 10 pieces of bread on at the window, and then I found only 9. What are we gonna do?
It's good to make a list, they say, right?
Okay, there's a big shot, if there are mice in the house.
Uh-oh, this is a real one for you, Shlomo.
Oh yeah.
There you go. I don't know.
Let me ask you, when I see a non-Jew coming into my house and he has a little sandwich in his hand, do I have to tell him to leave?
Leave the sandwich.
Huh?
Leave the sandwich outside.
Not really, because that's his, it's not yours.
Yeah, but what if he drops a crumb on your floor?
But it's still not
You
yours.
tell him not to eat it till he leaves.
The question is about your place of work. If you have employees, you have refrigerator.
That's your
More
question.
employees in your
Right
refrigerator.
What?
One thing, they're just in your refrigerator.
Those 10 pieces, are they the
That's a very
sephirot
good question.
in the tree
Yeah,
of
yeah.
life? They
Yeah,
represent.
obviously. Yeah.
So you're purifying that internally while doing
Yeah,
this
yeah.
externally.
Goes without saying.
Rabbi Shlomo, you're responsible also for
Goes without
your
saying,
work.
for
al-
you.
your work- if you're,
Did you know?
She was talking about your
No, there's a big, you see what it is?
workplace.
Let's say if a worker eats a sandwich, right? And then it falls down and it's in your house. But this little crumb doesn't really belong to you because it fell off from his sandwich. But basically, the Shulchan says you should not tell him to leave.
You should not.
No. But if he's working for you and you tell him before it's Pesach, be careful, But it says you can tell him not to eat it on the table. Because the table where you eat, you don't want any piece of chametz hanging around, even if it's not yours.
Shlomo, that was in your house, but now in the workplace, Steve brought up a very good point about the refrigerator that's shared. What do you do?
Basically, if you want to make it 100% good, you tell your workers, they love tzvi. Tell them to eat matzah,
That's what you do.
You're good.
Eat the matzah.
And sometimes Goyim like the matzah more than the bread,
Oh, always.
But what if you work with his non-Jews?
Does everybody here know? Everything is copied. Every food in the world, you can get French food in America, you can get Eskimo food. How come the world hasn't copied our matzahs yet? You know what the fact is? Only Jews can make matzah. Fact of life. Because matzah is mamish, water and flour. It should taste terrible. No salt, no pepper, nothing. You know what it is? When you take matzahs which have already something in it, it doesn't taste so good anymore. The real matzah is mamish nothing. And this is a gift from God. It's just given to us. Just given to us. Unbelievable.
Can I ask you a question? Because every year they get earlier and earlier with putting the Passover items on the shelves.
Yeah?
And here your house isn't kosher for Pesach.
You put it in the corner.
That's right.
Yeah, but it always seems to me like this.
No, it's covered. It's covered with paper, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't buy something open. Okay, I'm telling you, I know that Sammy wants to learn a little bit in Tzvi. So let's learn for a few more minutes, a little bit Chassidus. Then I'm giving you over to Sammy and to
Actually, the only problem I have with a lot of these halachas is that it still doesn't get to the spiritual element. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, technically you could have someone else do it. Yes, technically you can do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then it's part of, I remember when you taught this last year, part of the whole thing for Pesach for me that was so new when I came here that you taught me was the whole spiritual process one person goes through when you're actually doing the cleaning for Pesach, cleaning it in each part of your corner, each part of your...
Well, okay, this is what I want to do right now.
That's what I asked you about the Sphirot. That's what I was trying to allude to.
Sister, well, you know what I need? The Beis Yaakov Oil station must be downstairs. Huh?
Go get it.
Huh?
I may have taken it home.
So go get
you
it.
took it home?
If I don't see it, I'll bring it.
No, I saw it last night.
Oh, okay, so it's
Yeah, you have koyach?
Sure.
Okay, wait, I'll tell you what. Wait, 1 second, maybe it's here.
1 second. 1 second.
Wait, brother. Bedikat Chametz and the tshuva of Yom Kippur. Okay, Sam, forgive me, I'm beginning to learn from Nachman.
Okay, okay.
What?
He said okay.
Yeah. Normally you have clear prophecy. You remember Rabbi David Lelever? When he would travel in the summer, he would always take his fur coat with him. He says, where does it say in the Torah that in the summer has to be warm? Maybe it'll be cold. Why don't I take a fur coat with me? Because according to us, sadly enough, we are so enslaved to nature. And we know winter is cold, summer is warm, the morning is morning, the night is night. But if you're completely given to God, I don't know. You know, I hope tomorrow morning the sun will shine. I don't know. Maybe the moon will hang up longer. I have no idea. You know, on Pesach, what will happen? Mashiach is coming. The Mashiach is coming, it'll be so clear that Rabbi Shlomo is leading the world every split second, every billionth of a second, that we will not be enslaved to nature. Hopefully it's so, right? But this is already like a little bit the light of Mashiach. You know, when God created the world in such a way. If you remember, God turned his head away, so to speak, when he created the world. Because God didn't want us to see him completely, right? You know God created the world, but you don't see his face, right? Hester put him a little bit. And if you remember... What?
I may have taken it home.
No, then stay. I'm learning of Nachman. It's okay, brother. Just learning a few minutes. You know what it is? On Shabbos, you know, when God is hiding in his face, it's called Elokim. Elokim means just like judging and straight. Winter is winter, summer is summer. And Yud Kevovke is beyond, I don't know, right? It's beyond, there's no borders, just infinite. By Shabbos it says, Vayechal Elokim b'yom hashvi. It means, if it's translated simply, and God finished his work on the seventh day. But on the Rebbe said, Vayechal Elokim, it's the end of the Shem Elokim. Means on Shabbos also I have a little bit of a taste that there is no nature. There is no such a thing, right? You know, on Shabbos, why is Shabbos the headquarters for healing? Because said enough, you're so accustomed, if someone is sick, is mamish sick, God forbid the doctor says, mamish sick, then according to the doctor he has to die. On Shabbos, there is no such thing as nature, right? Tell you an unbelievable story. A person comes to the holy Kotzker Rebbe, and his Rebbe should never happen to anyone, has TB, and the doctor says, God forbid, it's over because I have no more lungs left. So the Kotzker Rebbe says, where does it say in the Torah you need lungs to live? So as long as the Kotzker Rebbe was alive, he was alive. And he was called the Kotzker lungs. The Kotzker lungs. The Kotzker Rebbe gave him lungs, you know. He lived without lungs. But then, when the Kotzker Rebbe passed away, then the Rebbe became the Chedusharim, you know. So he says, walked over to Shrim, he says, so far the Kotzker Rebbe kept me on his payroll. He says, but now that Kotzker Rebbe is gone, what's going to be with me? So he says, it's okay, I'll keep you on my payroll. But then he was already like 95. Then the Chedusharim passed away. And the new Rebbe was the Heilige Rabbi Shlomo Alexander. So he came to Alexander, and he says, Rebbe, you know, 2 Rebbes kept me on their payroll, the Kotzker Rebbe and the Chedusharim. Can you put me now on your payroll? He says to him, listen, the Kotzker Rebbe carried you for 30 years. The Chedusharim for 10 years. Have compassion, you know, that's it, you know. What I tell you in other unbelievable stuff. There's a big shaila if there is a hole in the lungs, if the behemoth is called treif or not. In a certain spot, if there's a hole, you know, the lungs, God forbid, when there's a hole in the lungs, it's the end. But it depends exactly where it is. So there's a big controversy within the Bes Yosef, between the Sfardim and the Ramah, the Ashkenazim, or we Paskin. Someone comes to the Tzemach Tzedek, and he says, Rebbe, the doctor told me I have a hole in the lungs. So the Tzemach Tzedek says to him, I tell you, here in Russia, we Paskin like the Ramah. And according to the Ramah, it's treif. So you have to go to Eretz Yisrael. There they're Paskin like the Bes Yosef. And then you can live longer. It's awesome, right? You went there to Israel and you lived very long. You know, the physicists, we think it is a joke. In heaven, mamish nature is subject to the Torah. Awesome, right?
That's right.
So you see, this is what Pesach is all about. Pesach is that suddenly I'm not subject to what the world calls nature. I'm subject to the Torah. So what am I doing when I wipe out the Chametz? And I wipe out the Chametz, I'm wiping out from my head. From my head. This idea that there is such a thing as nature. There is no such thing as nature. And the mamish make myself a subject. It's like after Mashiach comes. Because basically you have to know Seder night is mamish like after Mashiach comes. Because the fact is we open the door for your Novi, and hopefully we're ready. So Rav Nachman says when you are by the Chametz, and it's so awesome, you know, mamish like it's not to be believed the way God is taking care of me. See, I have to be by the Chametz in my own house because it's easier to believe that God is taking care of the whole world, and it's so hard to put into my kishkis that God is mamish taking care of me. Because it's not to be believed. Mamish, the master of the world, who created the whole world, is mamish taking care of me. Mamish of me. And therefore he says Pesach is called Shabbos. Because the Tzfiras Omer says Mimochas are Shabbos, because in that respect Pesach is like Shabbos, and on Shabbos there is no nature. And therefore he says, what is also a good Torah? What is the greatest miracle in the world? The greatest miracle in the world is when Mashiach is coming, right? Be the greatest. And miracles are called Godel, Nes Godel. So he says, on Shabbos HaGodel, the Shabbos before the experience comes Mashiach, we call it the Shabbos HaGodel, because the Shabbos before Pesach, where we sense the real great thing. Okay, one more thing which is very, very important. You know, like, this is the deepest. Which is heartbreaking, but still good, you know. Everything we're hearing, we are learning, filters in through my head, right? If you were to ask me, let's say, I'll tell you 12 from Nachman, right? The way it gets into your kishkis is already a little bit painted by your own, right? Because whatever I hear, whatever I see, gets through my head, right? Like a little bit Chametz, right? A little bit my own. When can I hear mamish the Torah the way it really is? And you know, Pesach is preparation for Shavuos. And imagine I listen to God, and even when I hear God speaking, it gets through my head, and then in the middle, you know. You know, sometimes you listen to Yidden the way they talk, you know, I don't want to say anything bad. It's crazy. What they fabricate there, right? So he says, say tonight, and the whole idea of Bedikat Chametz is that I can hear what God says to me without painting it with my own paint. It's Kabbalah, right? Because deep inside, I mamish believe there is no nature. I really believe there is only one God, and yet it's still a little bit painted. So he says, what is the greatest darkness? The greatest darkness is that it's so hard for me to believe that there is really mamish only one God. So the night of Bedikat Chametz is called Oil Bo'osa, the light, because it says V'laylo kayom yoyer. That night is like day. Then he says something very deep. At Chametz, we learned it a lot of times, is you're not permitted to see the Chametz. You're not permitted to have it in your possession. And it says, you shouldn't see your Chametz. It's the same thing, the way we see things, you know, is so painted with my own color. So when I find the Chametz and I burn it, it's mamish fixing my eyes. It is because what's our problem? Our problem is I look at myself and you know I'm disgusting and I'm crazy and I'm a creep, but the way I look at it, everything is okay, right? So he says this is much deeper than Yom Kippur. Because in Yom Kippur I'm still looking at myself with my eyes and I even hear everything with my ears. On Pesach, the cleaning, because of Bedikat Chametz, my ears and my eyes, my head, becoming so clear that I can look at myself and realize I really need cleaning. And also, something very beautiful. Nachman says, when you are looking for Chametz, how do you know you'll find it? He said, but this is already like the blessing from God. When you really want to find what's wrong with you, you'll find it. And this is just one more very deep thing. What's wrong with me? Where does it start? Does it weigh 10,000 tons? Deep inside, there's only one crumb which doesn't let me be the way I'm supposed to be. And this one little crumb is in the way. You know, Nachman says, how much of your finger do you need not to see the sun? The sun is so big, right? I put a little piece of my finger on my eye and I can see it, right? This one crumb of Chametz takes away my eyesight from everything big in the world, God, from people. So Chametz and by the Chametz, something happens to me, have different eyes. And if my eyes are clear, then I realize all I have to do is just, I'm not so terrible, just one crumb. Shabbos Kiyota.
Shabbos.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shlomo, for teaching
Thank you,
us.
Shlomo.
einige Mal wissen, Father and Mother, there's an old Chassidic custom, not for all the Chassidim, but some Chassidim, that, the father says to the mother, I would like to circumcise the baby. And the mother says, I only give you permission to circumcise the baby if you promise me that both of us, father and mother, be at the wedding of the baby. So I want you, mamas, to promise each other that you will be there and all of this will be there.
Do you want to understand? Moshe?
להשליך את חסקו לשכי חצירך ולזבות ובשרה כדי שרלך ועדה ורבינו אלוהי שלהם מהיר פרחס בן אלוסו בן הערנה כהנה שבס חמוס ומאבני ישראל וכנס כנוסי בסויכום לא יחיליסי את בני ישראל וכנוסי לכן אמר הנני נויס אלוהי בריתי שלום.
One thing, friends, I have a very important announcement there. The Holy Imam gave me permission to make this announcement. It is absolutely forbidden to keep your eyes open during the bris. It is not a show, it's not an exhibition. The truth is, as much as the Moel is holy, but he's doing it together with Avraham Avinu and Yonovi, and it's not for our eyes to see it. And this moment is so holy, and I want you to know that whatever you ask at that moment when Avraham Avinu and Yonovi is here, it's the highest moment when all the gates of heaven are open. And I want to tell especially all the young couples that don't have children yet, this is the time to ask for children. And all those who are not married yet, this is the time to ask to find your soulmate. So this moment is, don't waste it on looking him out if the mind is doing it right. When the baby's crying, I want you to know something else. When the baby's crying, it is not out of pain. Because the truth is, all the great rabbis taught us that the baby absolutely does not feel anything. The baby is so happy to become Eve. But the baby is crying, mamish, for the redemption of all of Israel, and this is mamish, the greatest time to pray.
Mr. Abrams?
Take the baby.
Zakis shel Leono vezochlato Yeshua kvisi Adonai sibarti Yeshua Adonai mitzvisa sisi Elio malach adresine shaloch lefonech amoid al yemini v'somcheni sosamoich el moser kmoitze shaloch shel balav ser ser velo memichshaim Ashrei tefkaskor vishke chatzerecho nezvot v'secho kedosh echalecho Nachman. Okay, you take the baby. zusammen gerade ist, bevor wir zahlen, der Koin, Savia ben Alassandro.
Everybody, please close your eyes.
You take them like that. Zurück. מלך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידושנו במצוותו ותשובנו חמילה. אמן. ברוך אתה. מלך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידושנו במצוותו ותשובנו לכבניאס בריתו של שם אברהם אבינו. אמן. Okay, who's taking the baby from the Sunday? Who's taking the baby?
No, it hasn't. It's okay. It has to be. And Benson, you want to give the baby to the...
Yeah, who's the same? Shlomo. How's he going to say the bracha? You have to hold the wine. Oh, that's right. You have to hold the wine. Either he says the bracha or the name of the
Mitch? Mitch, you want to...
Okay. Mitch? Because you can't...
Oh, standing
this and say bracha.
Really?
You take the baby, yeah. You take the baby off. He's gonna hold the baby for the baby? He's gonna hold the baby for the baby standing something. But he has to hold the wine, he can't hold. Eliyahu. Okay, you hold the baby.
He's holding it.
You have the wine?
Yeah. Eloheinu melech haolam, Chavet ba'arei peri hagefen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yashem
ריבוינוי של עולם יהי רצון לפניך שיהי זה חשוב לפניך כאילו הקרבתי לפני כיסא ידיך ועתו ורחמך הרבים שלח על ידי מלאכיך הקדושים נשמה קדושה וטהרה לעליון מוישה בן ציון הנמוי לעתו לשמך הגדול ושיהיה ליבו פתוח כפסחו של עולם וסירוסו הקדושה ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשיס וסיין לוי אריכוס יומים ושונים חיים של ירס חיים של אוישה לחובוי ושתמלא ליבו לטויבו אמן יהי רצון מי שברך אביסנו אברהם יצווה הקדוש שלמה יבור וירא פסח לדרך הנמוי לעליון מוישה בן מרים בעבר של בן ציון בן מרדכי בני נדון נדון רבי לצדוק לביטחון בשכר הקדוש ברוך הוא ישלח להם בהר ופורש להם רבה חבר שגדול ויגדלו לתוירו לחופו למעשם טובים ונאמר אמן ושברך אביסנו אברהם יצווה הקדוש שלמה יבור וירא פסח דנינו מרנו ורבנו רבי מנחם מנדל בן חנה בעבור שרבן ציון ברב מרדכי בני נדון נדון רבי לצדוק בשכר הקדוש ברוך הוא ישלח להם בהר ופורש להם לחורם חבר שגדול בסורך שחר לישראל ופורש הנפש ופורש הגוף אשתו בגולוס מקורי ונאמר אמן מזל
Olein Shabbat Adonai Kol Sed Gulot Amen.
Look at the camera, sweetheart. Look, take your picture. See? That's how pretty.
Hey, booby. Mazel tov.
Теперь с бабушкой.
Babushka? Oh, okay. Babushka. That's it. Oh, look at that. That's the sister? Your granddaughter, yeah. The sister of the baby. Yes. Gaval, 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 gaval. What a gorgeous. Hi, Bobby. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Hey. Together, yeah? Okay. All right. You want to go up there? Go ahead. Sure.
How long do you think this peace will last? But I'm in the middle of learning. The question is, should we just stay by the peace for a few minutes and then bench, or should we go up learning? And then when it comes to benching, we close down. There's people, I mean, how much should
You need here the place?
No.
Hello, Mazal Tov. Say hi. Oh, I see.
Mazal Tov to the whole family.
No, Alexander
Say Mazal Tov.
Amen.
You're learning?
Yeah, yes, you got to be here with those people. No? So come upstairs and join us.
Finish the laundry's obligation. I want to be since I'm learning. Do you want to eat and then do the bed? Anyway, I couldn't sleep with the baby anybody. You know what? Let me make you a plate, Miriam. I'm going to bring it upstairs. Okay?
How are you feeling?
It'll be his first learning upstairs. Mama should start learning.
Isn't that so fast?
She is.
Hi, Bedikat. I didn't see you. Where were you?
You want to come up and I'll show you how to take it.
Now you are on video. For posterity, most beautiful, gorgeous girl. Yeah, give me a smile. Let's say, like $1 million smile. That's it, baby. Wow, what a smile. Okay, you get the best.
My greatest memory of her was she was always concerned about others. She always was involved in helping others. Being when she and my father were members of this group called the Industrial Workers of the World, otherwise known as the Wobblies, or when they were working in the Haganah. My mother here in New York, and my father captain of a ship that brought in refugees against the British, or in the civil rights, or whatever. In fact, one memory she sticks in my mind. She tells me she was with a group. She and my father was a group of people.
Dan, could you turn to us? Turn to us so we can hear it. Okay. Good. Okay, go ahead.
Foolish to be an actor. I don't even know where the camera is.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. See him again today.
When she and my father, this was back in the 30s, and the U.S. had diplomatic relations with Nazi Germany, and there was this Nazi ship that came into New York Harbor, and a whole bunch of people came to protest it, and somebody managed to get up onto the ship and tear down the flag. My mother nearly got thrown off the pier. My father saved her in time from that. Anyway, so when the guy who actually tore down the flag and a few of the other people got in front of the judge, and so the German consulate was saying, you know, this is a sovereign country, etc., etc., and the judge simply replied, I don't recognize Nazi Germany. As far as I'm concerned, that was a pirate ship, and that was a pirate flag they tore down. So the case was dismissed. But as I said before, the one thing she inculcated in me and my sister is this concern for others.
These children are so well behaved. I have never seen children are so well behaved.
Mamish,
When they
right.
come and they're mamish, all of us want to be invited to their wedding.
That's a definite.
Let's see.